Okay, so if your way to make a conception of a baby is IVF, don't feel you made a mistake. Don't judge it, okay? If your neighbor has a baby from in vitro fertilization, IVF, don't say, oh, it's a test tube baby. All babies are divine and sacred. Some babies have a more scientific way of arriving. We don't know. Many times I had friends try IVF and it didn't work also, but later they got pregnant naturally. Also, I have friends who had baby by IVF. The baby is a divine, beautiful being, and the next baby came naturally. So we don't know how the miracle must happen, but believe that you have an inner knowing. Check in your inner knowing, pray, offer the divine creator your heart, your soul, your body. Say, please help me to have the right path for my family. Ask the baby's soul, please come and join our family. Make a nest in my womb. Eat good healthy foods that warm your body, because you need a warm body to make a baby nest. Your womb is your baby's home, and so make it warm. Sometimes people, they feel that they need to eat only raw food. Raw food is very healthy, especially people who have cancer and such. Raw food can be healing for them. But we need to cook 30 to 50% of our food using the sacredness of fire to warm our bodies, and because if we eat only raw, our digestion will be very, very stimulated, and all of our energy and our chi will be used just to digest food. You need energy and chi to make love. You need energy and chi to walk in our world and to have a good, wonderful life. You need energy and chi to make money for your supportive family. You need energy and chi as a mother to care for children. You need energy and chi to build a baby's body inside your baby house, inside your womb. So if you want to get pregnant and you're eating only raw food, please consider that you should cook 30 to 50% of your food, so that using the divine fire, the gift from the divine creator, our digestion is easier and we can warm our womb and increase our circulation. So whatever you feel is your divine calling, find your inner knowing and keep asking the question, you know, what is the best food for my body, for me to have a baby and a family? And how can I be strong and healthy in this world so I can build peace in this world? Because I think that if we ask ourselves, what is the real reason to have a baby? My answer is, to have a baby, the real reason is to share love, to build peace on earth. Because this is the job of family, to build peace on earth, one baby, one mother, one father, brothers and sisters, and from there, from the family, you build peace in the village, from the village you build peace in your city, and from the city in your country, from your country in your planet. We can build peace one baby at a time. So this is the real reason to have a baby, not so you can own someone. We don't own our children. Our children have their own soul, their own life. We do not own them, but we can love them. And by loving them, we can build peace. So the real reason to have a baby is to make peace on earth.
Is it true that women who deliver baby at 30, 40 years, it's too old, usually have more problems with health? It's a really big risk to have baby after 30, 40 years.
So sometimes when you go to the doctor and you have more than 30 years, 35 years, 40 years, the doctor will say, you have a geriatric pregnancy. This is a cruel, unkind thing to say. We have many, many, many healthy babies at Bumi Sehat and at home, born to mothers that are more than 40 years old. More than 40, 45. My grandmother gave birth to my mother when she was 44 years old, and then 2 years later she had one more baby. So my mother was the 9th healthy child, and my aunt was the 10th. My grandmother is a small Filipino woman living in the mountains before World War II. My mother was perfectly healthy. And my grandmother in America, if she was 44 years old and pregnant, the doctors would say that she was high risk. The doctors would say that she must have cesarean. The doctors would say that it's bad. But you know what? My mother was born gently, peacefully, healthy, at home in 1932. She's 84 years old. She has perfect health. She is beautiful. So do not tell me that you have a geriatric pregnancy if you're more than 30 years old. This is just prenatal scare. Run away from people who say that. Go to the people, if you look for help in your pregnancy, go to the people who give real loving prenatal care. Run away from prenatal scare.
Why we have so much problems with pregnancy and delivered babies? It is because of health which are more than 20 years ago, or it's problem of our mind, and we don't know our bodies and don't want to know them. Why 20 years old woman can burn their babies, or they can, and someone lie to woman?
So why is it that 20 years ago, 30 years ago, 100 years ago, it seems that babies were more easy to be born? One of the things is our food. One small hand of spinach, one small handful of spinach 100 years ago or 50 years ago had all the vitamins and minerals you need for your whole day. Now if you eat this much spinach, even you grow it organically, there's so much pollution, there's so much stress on the planet and negative energy that of course the spinach has a hard time nourishing you. So I say when you sit down to eat your food, clear the food by your prayers. Take a moment, meditate or pray, say thank you, and the food will be more nourishing. Okay? This is one thing in conception time, in pregnancy, and also postpartum, and for the rest of your life. Bless your food. And they say, why is it that women are so difficult to give birth now? You know, before, when a woman is in labor at home, like my daughter is 40 years old, my granddaughter is 20. 20 years ago, when my daughter was in labor, she was in labor for 4 days and 4 nights. I waited. I was patient. I listened to the heartbeat of my granddaughter inside my daughter, and they were fine. It was like a Matryoshka doll, Matryoshka doll. My granddaughter was inside my daughter, and I was around her. So we had 3 generations, and then my mother came, so we had 4 generations of Matryoshka. And the 4 days and 4 nights was not disturbing because my daughter needed that time because her mind was very stuck. She had many stories in her head about what she can do, what she can't do. Can she be strong? Can she be a good mother? Can our world welcome a divine child? It's a very difficult time. She had many things in her head. And so it took her 4 days and 4 nights to gently let go. Because birth will take down the wall you build to protect yourself. We build a wall to survive in this very harsh planet. It's a beautiful planet, but it has become harsh for many reasons, political, many reasons spiritual, many reasons out of our control. So my daughter had a big giant wall, and it took 4 days for her birth experience to take her wall down, 1 brick, 2 bricks, until the last brick. And until your wall is completely crumbled and all your defenses are down, you will not give birth. There's a beautiful mother here who had a long labor, a hard labor, and she gave birth to a beautiful, more than 4-kilo baby boy. Now the boy is 2 years old. She did it because the midwives at Bhumi Sehat let her have time. They gave her the gift of Father Time and Mother Nature to do their job together with her birth process. If you make a clock and you say, oh, it's been too many hours, of course, 80% of women, 90% of women will have cesarean, you know? If you can walk in the garden, Bhumi Sehat has a big vegetable garden and a big garden full of fruit trees, and the mothers in labor walk there, and when they have a contraction, they hang from the tree, they hang from their husband's body. The midwife, if they are in great pain, will walk with them, and the doula will rub her back. Doulas really can help you, you know? My friend in New York City says, you cannot have a baby in a hospital naturally in New York City without a doula, because the doula will help you to believe in yourself. The doula will help you to understand that it's okay to take your time. Do not run to the hospital in 4 hours and say, I cannot do it, because you can. Almost every mother, when she's pushing, when she's finally fully dilated and her baby is coming into the world, almost every mother says, oh, I cannot do it. I give up. I said it. I had very, very easy, fast labor and birth. But I said it every time. I cannot do it. I cannot do it. My midwife said, yes, you can. And we believe in you. And they hugged me. And they looked in my eyes and said, we believe in you. They didn't say, oh, you cannot do it. We go to hospital. Oh, no. No, they listened to the baby. The heartbeat is normal. The baby is saying, yes, I can. The mother's body is pushing, yes, I can. If the mother is exhausted, she doesn't need to run to hospital. What she needs is some honey. Pure honey is medicine. Eat the honey and you will have energy to push your baby into the world. Of course, some small percentage of mother needs cesarean. Some small percentage of baby needs cesarean, and it's a miracle. But not 80%, 90%. Not like the modern times in hospital. In Bumisehat, 2.4% are taken to hospital for cesarean. And not all of them need it. Not all of them. Sometimes the mother-in-law, the father's mother or father's father will say, this baby has been long enough, it's a boy, it's precious, we're going to take you to hospital to have a cesarean because we want it. Not because mother and baby need it, but still, even if that kind of birth happens, we have to support the family. We still only have 2.4%. So, really, 100 years ago, many women were dying in childbirth because they didn't have the skill of a midwife to help them if they were bleeding. But now, we have the skilled midwives, but women are dying from too many cesareans. Look at the United States. The United States is a country with an absence of sacred. And it's a country in grave mourning and sadness and sorrow and trouble. And there's so many cesareans. And the maternal mortality rate, the numbers of mothers dying in the United States has been going up every year since 1986. And they're spending so much money on technology and childbirth. If they're spending all of this money and energy on technology and childbirth, then the maternal mortality and infant mortality rate should be going down, down, down. But that is not the fact. The fact is it's going up. More mothers are dying. More babies are dying. So we know that technology is not the answer. The answer is love. The answer is good relation with your family. The answer is try to heal that in pregnancy. Try to heal that before conception. The answer is have a doula or a sister or a mother or an aunt or the old woman who lives there in your garden, there nearby, who looks at you over the fence and smiles and brings you food. Let them love you. Let all of those women and those people love you so that you can bring your baby out. Because what drives birth? Childbirth is driven by oxytocin. Oxytocin is the hormone of love. Without love, birth cannot come naturally. When you go to the hospital, ask yourself, is this a place of love? When you visit, if it's not a place of love, you go far from there. Because without love, oxytocin, the hormone, cannot flow. And if the hormone oxytocin cannot flow, childbirth becomes much more difficult. So imagine women still give birth without love. They overcome every obstacle. So if you have love, you don't have so many obstacles. You can do it. I believe you can. Let's change this terrible history of so many women being forced to cesarean. Let's change it and go back to the time when all women knew that they could. Their mothers gave birth, their grandmothers gave birth, and they can give birth, and their daughters will give birth. Because I know we can. I know my granddaughter will give birth. My daughters gave birth with me. And I know it's because they were believed in and supported by the entire family. So it is love and support that helps you to have a natural birth. And so many women don't have access to love and support. That is why it seems statistically that childbirth is more difficult. I say not really. Childbirth is not more difficult. When you have your baby and you say, wow, that was intense, that was a lot of work, that was huge. When you say that, also remember your mother did that for you. And you can do it for your baby, and your baby will do it for her daughters too.
The next question is about children. Sometimes children die. Sometimes it's happened when pregnancy just started. Sometimes it's happened that to 20 weeks pregnancy. Sometimes then die in labor, after birth. How we can live after and not close our heart? what should we understand in this case? What should change in our life? And why it happens?
Oh, so the question the mother is asking is, she says sometimes babies die. Sometimes they die in the beginning of pregnancy and they're miscarried. Sometimes they die in the middle of pregnancy and then you have a beautiful baby but too early. Sometimes in the end of pregnancy or in the birth process, and sometimes later in childhood, in infancy and childhood. And how can a mother and father continue on and carry on in life after the death of a baby? This is a very hard thing. This is a very, very hard thing. And I don't really have an answer, but I have a story. My son Zion, when he was a teenager, he was the kind of child from the beginning. He was my fourth baby. He was born very gently in the water at home, and we didn't clamp and cut the cord. We just left him be. And he was a child who almost never spoke. He was very quiet, and he just made beautiful drawings. And he would take a small scissors and paper and fold a mandala and make beautiful patterns. And he would give them away to people. And so people really saw him as a kind of Buddha because he didn't speak. But when he was a teenager, he once told me the story of before he was born. And he said, "Mom, I remember the twins." And I said, "Oh, what twins?" And he said, "The twins that you had in your body, and they were my brother and sister, and they died when they were only small, and they came out after they died, and they were born too soon." I was shocked because Zion was the fourth child. After my first child, I was pregnant with twins, and they were 22 weeks. They were beautiful, little, perfect boy and girl, and they came out too soon, and they were born. And I mourned them for years. And fortunately, Divine Creator gave me more children, and I carried on with my life and my vision and my mission, but I always missed the twins. And I said, "How do you know about the twins? How do you know?" He said, "Because they're my brother and sister, and when I was waiting to be born, they stayed with me, and they took care of me. They took care of me in heaven, and after I was conceived, they took care of me when I lived inside your womb. And they guided me at the time I was being born. They helped me to know the right time, and they helped me to take the courage to go out of your body and to be born in the world and open my eyes. They were the ones that gave me the courage. They guided me and they cared for me." So even though I lost my twins, even though my beautiful twins died, they're not lost. They're still in my family. We're doing an interview for Russian mothers. Can you sit by me?
Yeah.
Hi.
How are you?
Come, I'm so happy to see you. So this is Nicolo Giovannini, and he is a doctor of OBGYN, obstetrics. And the question that the mother from Russia asked, the last question for this interview, this is the last question, yeah?
Yeah, last question, sir.
So the last question of this interview was, why should we trust midwife? Why, when doctors study longer and have more education, we should trust doctor instead of midwife to have a baby? So I think this is a good question for you to answer because you're a doctor.
Yeah.
So
I will not speak in Russian, I think.
there.
Thank you.
No.
Sorry, I'm not going to speak in Russian. I can speak Italian, but I'm going to answer in English. It's okay?
I'm not speaking Russian. I love to speak Russian, but
Yeah. So спасибо, and I think it's really appropriate question because it really center the split that happened in our medicine art. Because our art has been built in trust and has been built in understanding, and the understanding that was brought to us as allopathic doctor was about how to heal the disease. So this is really the cardinal point, because we are really good in reacting to a severe condition, to find treatment, to do surgery, to do emergency medication. But when we have to understand a physiological process, we cannot cope with that, because we still put at the center disease. So it's like a nocebo effect that is given to women. Even though we know a lot of things, we don't know about physiology. We don't know about all the neurotransmitter and hormonal cascade that happens during childbirth. So for us, it's just to prevent a major, even rare event. So in order to prevent happening that, we're going to interfere with the physiology and we're going to provoke some complication. So it's important to make this distinction because allopathic doctors are really fabulous in the surgery. Compared to 100 years ago, we had so much improvement of the technique of cesarean section, improvement of anesthetics, improvement of antiseptic. But on the other hand, we are getting poorer and poorer on giving the women the best way to have birth, giving them the most significant empowerment, more significant way to improve their health. So it's just as we have decreased the biodiversity. How it happens with the microbiome, that we are losing microbiome, even transgenerationally. Now we are losing health to the best transgenerationally. I mean, if you look just to the number, epidemiologic numbers, we have that in the 70s, early 70s, there was a 5% of C-section rate in the US. Now it's around 40%, 35%, and it's become a world epidemic, like globesity, like obesity. The crucial point is that we are not giving the women the best way to deliver, they don't give the best way to birth. We are not making the transition happening in the most correct way. And so there are several examples. One is C-section was 5%, now it's 40%. And why it has increased so much? Because we are better to do that surgery. So instead of putting women at the center, we put surgery at the center. So that surgery is well performed, so we're going to serve this surgery. But it's like we are getting confused. What counts really? It counts the technique or it counts the person, it counts what the person will take from that experience, what will take from that life. In this case, it's like a diet. It's not just one person, it's two persons, and it's even the husband around and all the relatives. So it's really have a major domino effect. So it's like we have a dichotomy. We have like two possibilities. One is just to give a center human intervention, a single intervention, a personal intervention, or we're just going to avoid to have some kind of complication. And so we're going to start to drive our car with already the airbag out. So we are not going well because we have this airbag out, but we just keep the airbag out because if there is an accident, it's already out. So this is a little bit the analogy of what's going on now in this system. So until the system is just going in the survival mode, we are not going to see all the subtleties, we are not going to see all the consequences of disempowering women, of disempowering the health of the single individual or the single diet. And so now we can see that long-term consequences of C-section start to appear at epidemiological level. We can see that these consequences can be shown only in the middle and the long run, especially, but not only, because if some women, as it happens frequently, even in Italy, they come to me and they ask, please do a C-section because I'm afraid. Okay, I'm going to tell her, what are you afraid about? And then we stop in this kind of fear without looking what is beyond the tip of the iceberg. And then if you really want to see what is supported the fear, then if we start to give a look to epidemiological data, we can see that just the fact to be born by C-section for a woman, to give birth by C-section, will add like an increase of maternal death of 4 times more than vaginal birth. So we just enter in a relation with all the facts and not just vague ideas. We start to have a different way to see what is fear and where to address that fear. So it's really important that paradoxically to bring science, to bring numbers to something that has lost, the number has lost its statistical adherency. That is in our allopathic system, paradoxically, we lost the scientific view. Because if we look at the numbers, it's for sure that we would go to empower as much as possible gentle birth, wisdom birth, intelligent birth, and not just to apply the survival mode and driving the car with this airbag out. And we can talk for a lot of time about this, but I would really suggest that to understand that we, as we allopathic doctors, we really depend on the wisdom of the figure that knows better women, and it's normally the midwife. So midwife is the one that during the process of birthing really understands the subtleties. As us as surgeon, as obstetrician, as doctors, we don't know the physiology. So we are the best figure to face an emergency situation. But to prevent an emergency, we really need that the main director is the midwife.
So, as a man who is also a doctor specializing in obstetrics and gynecology, if you're having a baby now, are you choosing for your family to have a midwife or doctor for the birth of the baby?
Yeah, of course I would choose the person. I would choose a specific person, and normally that person is a midwife. Because she has knowledge of the birth, she has knowledge of the physiology. If I need to face an emergency, then I would trust that the midwife will refer that situation to a doctor. So it's not like to see things in dualistic way. It's not doctors and midwives are against each other. They are just working in a teamwork. So when the physiology is still there, the best figure is midwife. When there is an emergency, the midwife, a good midwife, knows to refer to the gynecologist. There is no interference, and the same midwife will help the doctor to do surgery. So there is no separation. It's just a wisdom, a clever way, and it's called integration and not separation.
This is the gentle, loving way of birth.
Yeah.
About the book.
I think 2-3 months later.
Yes. I think in June we have the conference in June we will have the conference, so we try to.
We hope that it's all available.
Okay.
And I want to ask you what you think. You can share a little bit about this book and.
Okay, two. After the baby's birth and also placenta.
Russian woman is so important.
Okay. Placenta, the Forgotten Chakra, which is a new book. It has been a book since I wrote this book in 2009 and revised it several times. It is a manual for the loving relationship that you have with yourself, your soul, and your angel that was your placenta and your baby's placental angel. This book is now finally being released in Russian language. It's a miracle. I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful to Valeria for a beautiful translation. I'm so grateful to the artists who made the images sing and made them more colorful. And I'm so grateful to Olga and her children and her husband Alex for making it possible for us to have in the Russian language this beautiful book. And I will tell you, Placenta, the Forgotten Chakra looks at the science. This book looks at also the spirit, and it looks at that thing in between, the nature of placenta as not just an angel, not just a physiological advocate for the baby's life during pregnancy, but many surprises. So I encourage you, if you have questions, what is this? A book about placenta? Try it, read it, enjoy it, take it to bed with you, and open the pages. You don't have to read it from the beginning to the end. You can just open the page and see what jumps out at you. Thank you. I love you.